Fantastic. Before we start anything, I want to say hello and welcome. And we are so glad and so grateful you are here today. This is going to be an amazing event. I've said that like 8 times, so now it has to be true. I want to say special thanks today before we jump into Strengthening the Heartland, who is sponsoring today's event. Strengthening the Heartland developed through the collaborative efforts of faculty from South Dakota State University Extension and North Dakota State University Extension, with generous grant support from the National Institute of Food and Agriculture and the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Strengthening the Heartland is dedicated to providing services that prevent opioid misuse in rural communities across the Dakotas. So, shout out to Strengthening the Heartland. Thank you so much for sponsoring today's event. I'm just going to tell you real quick. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm going to be speaking with and interviewing. This is going to sound weird, but one of my literary heroes. I'm sorry if that is weird. Um, I am a podcaster, I'm a writer and creator here in South Dakota. And so, with that, I would like to say hello and welcome to our guest, Anne Lamott, who is, let's see, I asked earlier how Anne would like to be introduced, and she said very modestly, but I'm still going to say Anne is the author of 19 books, a New York Times bestseller, an activist, an all-around amazing person, lives in Northern California. Hello, Anne. I am just ecstatic to see you today.
Oh, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you. This is very, very, very exciting. I want to start off easy. I mentioned earlier I have all of these like really deep and meaty questions to ask you, but I want to start with something that'll maybe get us into things here. And that is, can you tell us a little bit, how are you getting through this pandemic? How are you coping? How are you living day by day?
Well, that is a great question. I, um, let's see, I've been in recovery almost 35 years, so I find groups of sober
Mhm.
people or the tiny control freaks who are in a program to support alcoholics and addicts, and I find them online, and I check in, and I say my name out loud. And I go for a walk every single day on these sore, aged feet. And when I feel nuts and stressed out, I pick up the 200-pound phone, which is really the secret of health, mental and spiritual. And I tell someone that I'm struggling. I tell either my son or my husband. I ask them if they have a minute. And I take a nap every afternoon. When you're a little older, you can get away with this, although I started doing it at about 50. I just shut down from the world for a couple hours. I have a lot of demands on my life and time, and I close up for about 2 hours with the kitty and read and sleep for about 45 minutes.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I want to ask too, I talk to a lot of folks during this time, and a lot of people aren't picking up that phone and reaching out because they're afraid that they're going to be a burden.
Mhm.
What would you say to that?
Well, this the alcohol, my alcoholism, and in fact, some of my mental health diagnoses are all diseases of isolation,
Mhm.
and everything in me tells me to stay by myself and to keep it to myself because I was raised to keep it to myself. You know, the classic, "Don't talk, don't feel."
Yeah.
And it's funny. There were a dozen of us in our carport the other day, all double vaxxed, but all in recovery, 12-step recovery, and we were talking about fear and all the acronym, the great acronyms that I've amassed over 35 years. And the first one was always false evidence appearing real, where you see things. As someone said on Saturday, they're a great observer but a bad interpreter. So you see something and you make something of it that is probably dangerous. If you grew up around people that were not well, there's a lot of danger in your brain pan,
Mm.
potential brain damaging danger, and it's mostly just mental for me. Um, and so the false evidence appearing real, and then forgetting everything's all right is a great fear,
Ooh.
and future events already ruined is a great acronym for fear, but the recovery one is fear expressed allows relief. And so for me, if I will just take a chance on the healing that happens 100% of the time, if I share what I'm going through with a safe person,
Mm.
who will look back at me and who won't say, why on earth would you think that or worry about that? You know, they would say, oh, honey, I was there the other day on Tuesday, and actually what I did was, and can I get you a lovely cup of tea? Or do you want to come over? Do you want to go for a walk? And so the disease of both addiction and mental illness tell me to stay very, very small and self-contained. And the voice of my beloved community and my higher power tell me to say the words out loud.
Mm.
I'm scared. I hate everything. I'm scared. I'm kind of vaguely sick to my stomach. And then I have never once had a safe person. There's, 5 of them in the whole world say, well, that's crazy. That's ridiculous. They don't. They go, oh, honey, tell me more.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. I almost want to ask you, how do we find those safe people? But it sounds like it might just be through living and experiencing.
Well, I think, Mel Brooks had a great line that I tell all my writing students, and it was, listen to your broccoli, and your broccoli will tell you how to eat it. Of course, he meant intuition. And so I tell people or newcomers in the program or whatever, listen to your broccoli. You know who's safe. There's so many people that left to my own devices, I think I need to get to like me more or to esteem me, because I grew up thinking that the respect was out there. And if the right people or institutions thought I was cool, that there'd be trickle down and I would too, but it's an inside job. And so there are people who I feel this kind of adrenalized anxiety around of trying to get them to like me and esteem me. Those aren't safe for me. That's
Interesting.
my childhood. And there are people who I can do the sacrament of ploppage with. I can sit down and let my shoulders cave in, and I can be real. And there aren't going to be that many of them, they're going to be, and I know who they are. And because I'm also that person for them.
Yeah.
And so it's like a contact between our souls. You look very young, but when I was coming up, and in the 60s, everybody read Stranger in a Strange Land,
Yeah.
Robert Heinlein, right? And his person, the stranger, the visitor, and we're all a stranger in a strange land. Anybody I've ever known, anybody I would ever sit down next to at the dining room table has felt like a stranger in a strange land. But the verb he used was grokking, that he could grok you. And that meant beyond intelligence and beyond, sussing out the data stream, but grokking you in my heart and in my spirit. Well, heart and spirit weren't big topics in my childhood because I was raised really to perform as a perfectionist, because my mother was English, which I blame a lot of my problems on. There's a special 12-step program for the children of the English, and they were both intellectuals, and and they were unhappy with each other, and so it fell to me to help everybody feel better about themselves. And so I didn't have, like broccoli, I wasn't able to trust my intuition. If I could see something was going on and I said what I thought was going on with mom and dad, I often went to my room without eating. My brothers and I all did. It was very 50s and early 60s. And so for my writing students, and I think maybe for everyone, to get back that faith that you are a reliable narrator of your own life and experience is one of the hugest gifts you can ever give yourself and be given and be helped to reclaim. And so that's how you find safe people, is you grok them and you take a chance on them. And so you try out, you give them kind of a little bit of a soft pitch, and if they sit down and they say, tell me more, or I know exactly what you're talking about, or how can I serve you?
Mm.
Um, then you know they're safe, because they're not going to try to get you to try to appear to be doing better than you are. That's another great acronym for fear, is the frantic effort to appear recovered,
Oh,
which is hand in hand with the perfectionism. And the perfectionism is the enemy of the spirit. It's the voice of the oppressor. And so when somebody will not try to get you to think that you feel differently than you do, that person's safe for me.
because they allow the truth to come through.
Yeah, they allow the truth and they allow the real.
Wonderful. How did was it just time that allowed you to slowly reestablish your relationship with truth, with being able to tell the truth?
It was time and just some incredibly beautiful, profound teachers along the way from every different realm, poets and Buddhists and, you know, every possible spiritual reality, a realm had teachers for me. And they taught me slowly how to be human, how to throw the stuff out of the airplane that was keep me flying too low.
Mm.
You know, I was just kind of grazing treetops because I'd been carrying around so much crap, if we're allowed to say that on your show, on your on your podcast, so much false stuff, so many false narratives about myself, so many things that I thought were like awards, you know, like swimming participation awards, but that I just didn't need anymore. I needed to make more messes. I needed to space out and waste more time. I needed to kind of unlearn a lot of what I learned as a child. And that took time, but it also took the willingness to be, what do they call it in Buddhism? Beginner's mind.
Mm.
The Suzuki book, Beginner's Mind. I'm teachable. I'm not positive that anything I know is true anymore, and I want to start from ground zero.
Mm.
My son and Reese have his business partner and best friend have a podcast called How to Human, and it has all these people on it that helped me
Mm.
along the way, like Jack Kornfield in the Buddhist tradition, and Byron Katie, and Julia Cameron, the wonderful artist way writer, and I could go on and on. But they're all these uh, intimate interviews about how to human, how to get brave enough to not look quite as good as you always agreed to look. Right. And I was a superstar. I was a superstar student. I was a tennis champion, all of it. And I thought that's who I was. And all of these people, I mean, some people were found salvation, say, in Jesus or in the Buddha. And I found salvation in the women's movement when I was 15. And the first issue of Ms. Magazine came out. And the women were saying, we are going to be doing very real from now on. And if you are uncomfortable with that, maybe you might be reading and listening to other sites and other writers, but we're going to do real, and we're going to do ugly when ugly is real, and we're going to do furious. When I was coming up, angry woman was exiled. She was usually divorced and replaced with a much younger, cuter woman who would not, stand up to the man. And the women in the early days of the movement said, "We're going to cry. We are crushed by what we have believed about ourselves, and we are furious about how we were told to behave in the world, to be accepted. We don't care anymore." And I remember sitting with my best friend, Pammy, on her piano bench when the first issue arrived. It's sort of off the subject, but when I was young, and maybe when you were young, remember when the Sears catalog arrived and you'd sit with your girl cousin or your best friend and you'd have this huge catalog. It was like a phone book shared over your laps, and you turn the pages and you felt kind of a proprietary ownership of whatever was on your page,
Mhm.
and then you longed for whatever was on their page. Then you realized they were both yours. Well, that's how Pammy and I read Ms. Magazine. Even the ads. It was the first time the ads hadn't said how much happier women would be if they could just get their weight down, or if they had a much, much smoother foundation. And our minds were blown. It was like sitting next to a Buddhist gong. And that was where I found salvation in chapter books too. I bet you did too at 5. I mean, I was a very early reader, and when it turned out that you could get lost in these worlds that were two-dimensional pages, but entire worlds, um, and then in being lost in that very singular way, you were going to be found, whether it was Stuart Little, who you were, or Pippi Longstockings, who you were, or Little Women, or and in getting found, the miracle was that the next day the story was going to go on, and you were safe. And no matter what the world threw at you in kindergarten or whatever grade you were in, you were safe. You had a home, and the home was in chapter books, and in the wisdom and beauty and incredible humor that these writers were offering young people.
I don't know how you did that, but you just spoke to my entire existence. So thank you. I know that I have your new book here, Dusk, Night, Dawn. Those of you who haven't snagged a copy, please do. It is stunning. One of the things that you talk about um, in this book, you just mentioned this act of being seen, of being found, of being safe, of being home. And that's one of the themes that I saw resonating throughout this book. And you talk about being seen not just for this facade that we put up, but feeling truly seen. And you say in the book, you, not the mess of you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
Well, being seen is a huge theme of my life, my entire life, and being safe is the other theme. It's like my husband is he needs to be right. You can read about him in time. You can go to his website, shapesoftruth.com. He has a book out tomorrow. His thing is that he needs to be right, and he usually is. He's like completely overeducated. And I'm not, like, I'm a dropout. But I felt invisible. Girls were invisible. I remember that I had this gift for math, and I broke the codes really early, and that's all math was. And I broke the codes, but it was like wrong that I was better than all the boys in the class. And I remember in 3rd grade, there would be throat clearing because I would know the answer before the smartest boys. Because it's like, it was just something I was able to do. It's funny. I wasn't afraid of it. I guess that was the main thing. I wasn't afraid of all those numbers. They were fun for me.
Yeah.
And so to be seen and to be safe were meant that little by little by little, I needed to become an internal being. And that really wasn't something girls were supposed to do, because you got your sense of value from how the men around you and the boys around you felt about you. I was not, I was very, very strange looking, really, really skinny, had this crazy kinky hair, had these huge green eyes, and I was too smart. I skipped most of 4th grade. And so then I went into 5th grade, a year younger, at a time when all of your value came from whether the 5th grade boys thought you were cute or not, right? And little by little by little, mostly through girlfriends and reading, I realized that it was all an inside job, that you could get people temporarily to think that you were okay. Like my mom got my hair straightened when I was about 13, maybe younger. And then I said it for years with Dippity Doo. Some of your listeners will remember Dippity Doo. And so I could temporarily be okay.
Mm.
And but then there might, in my case, be weather, and then my hair would frizz up, or there would just be something that would wreck it, because anything outside of you that makes you feel good about yourself is temporary. Let me tell you one story
Yeah.
from the How to Human podcast that I really live by. Sam and the great composer and songwriter Paul Williams did a podcast. You can Google it or you can go to, I guess you go to Hello Human, and then you put in Paul. I can't do it, but I feel like your listeners are younger and they can do this. So Paul Williams told Sam, and they were both in tears as he said this, that the night he won the Oscar, he was still using and drinking. for the Barbra Streisand movie that he scored. He said, you know, hundreds of millions of people worldwide were watching me and exalting me. And he said, it was the most incredible feeling I've ever had. And he said, it bought me 24 hours,
Wow.
right? So anything you can achieve or buy or look like or appear to be or marry or own or lease is going to buy you 24 hours. So you have to do the deep dive. And usually for me, and so much of all of my work, I think, is about, it's not like we're trying to avoid the adorable, charming, erudite parts of ourselves, right? We're trying to avoid the parts of us that are scary to us, you know, that we have shame around, the insecurities and the infinite judgment and the secret hostility we have, and the racism and all the isms and all the stuff. And so there's a great, it's not a, I don't know what you call it, but in the recovery program for families of alcoholics, we see the word intimacy as really meaning into me, I see. And if I can have another person see those very dark shadows in me and say, I have that too. God, thank you for trusting me. I have that too. Then it diminishes it. It's like that acronym I told you, that fear expressed allows relief. Well, self-loathing expressed allows relief. And but everything in me says, don't say it out loud. You know, either try to get over it or pretend that. Well, you know what? My Jesuit friend, I know you've come across this in my books. Tom Weston told me this thing for shame, about shame, 25 years ago at least. He said the 5 rules of being an American adult are: you must not have anything wrong with you or different about you. The second rule is that if you do, you really have to get over it as quickly as possible. The third rule is that if you can't get over it, if you can't correct this situation, you should just pretend that you have. It's no longer an issue. The fourth rule is that if you can't even pretend that you've gotten over it, you should just not show up because it's so painful for the rest of us, right? And the fifth rule is that if you're going to insist on the right to show up, you should have the decency to be ashamed.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's what all of us and every writer I've ever worked with in my writing workshops is up against. And so how do we deal with the shame? Well, you start to become aware of it. You know, shame is for me one of the symptoms that I'm in my disease. I'm not in my interior life. I'm not in radical self-love or self-care. It became a funny comfort zone for me as a child. This obsession with how everybody else was doing, this toxic obsession with other people's potential, the shame I felt as kind of a public service to my family because I took on a lot of their shame. I put my mom and dad's shame in my backpack because I was trying to keep the boat of my family afloat. I believed as a public service that I was defective. But what comes with that is that I'm also responsible. So it's a very dicey position to try to live from, that there's something inherently wrong with me that I need to correct, and that I'm responsible for everybody else being okay and feeling safe and esteemed. So it was a lot to carry. And if I were to, I mean, I could write a whole book about this. I've written about it in every book, but it really begins with what Martin Luther King called the precious community. And Henry Nouwen, the brilliant French theologian, I think he may have been a Jesuit, called the beloved community. It's like the community. For me, it's a people in recovery. It's people who understand that I have certain mental illnesses that when I pretended I didn't have them, made me so much worse that I wanted to die. I spent a lot of time, I wasn't actually suicidal, but I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
Yes.
And as soon as I could express them to girlfriends typically, or have two gay men that I can tell anything to, my son and my husband now, my 2 very best friends, I can literally say, I have to tell you something. I haven't told anyone before. And they know. that they just let down into their quietest, the heart cave, and they listen. And it takes away so much of its power. But I needed to become aware that these were ways these were comfort zones for me as a child. There was a certain kind of caffeinated separation from self that helped me deal with the fact that mom and dad didn't like each other and that I wasn't ever sure that dad would come home. Now, my dad didn't like my mom, and she didn't like him much either, but both of them loved me, and I really needed to be my dad's wife, and I needed to be the reason he came home. And so I learned certain female skills, and I mean, I was raised to be a great conversationalist because that meant dad and my dad's friends, all of whom were alcoholic, were glad when I was around. I read the right book so I could talk to people, to men about them. And so I needed to trace it all the way back to having been a survival tool. When I was 4 and 5, I had chronic migraines from the age of 5. I weighed 40 pounds and I couldn't have any light or any sound. And it didn't occur to my parents that I and my whole family needed help. It wasn't a part of the conversation. I didn't know anybody who had a therapist. If you had a therapist, it meant you were cuckoo, and that you had to go probably be hospitalized. And there was no awareness that I was the most stressed out child, that I was desperate. And all I knew to do was to perform at an even higher level, because that gave me a fix. That gave me a hit. I was a perfectionist, and that was like a junkie getting a fix. If I brought home all A's, everybody was happy. But also when I stayed sick, everybody did better. When I had a migraine, it was like, Annie's in bed, don't go in her room. Oh, can you take Annie some cold compresses, but don't talk. And the family got so quiet and kind of elegant and so compassionate until my headache, it was usually the next morning that I would wake up and be okay again. So I could stay very sick. And I bet 2/3 of the people listening agreed to stay sick or overweight or emaciated um, to help the family as a public service.
As a public service.
So you trace that back and you start to realize it didn't work all that well at 5 years old, and it doesn't work all that well at 67. Now, if I'm really stressed, what I usually try to do, I have a disease of good ideas for other people. And I have ideas for my husband and my son, my grandson, and my 2 or 3 best friends that I'm positive will help them. And you learn in recovery and over many years that your help is really not helpful. It's my help hurts people. If it's not my problem, I probably don't have the answer. But my son, who's right here right now, will be 32 this year, and if he's stressed, I want to get on to his hero's journey with him and run just slightly behind him so I won't be a problem with like sunscreen and a juice, a Capri Sun and a packet of nuts, and when I do that, it's abuse, not child abuse, adult abuse. When I do that with my husband, when I try to get him to behave a certain way because his choices are making me uncomfortable, I'm in trouble. I'm in my disease. So let me tell you one tool that really helps me a lot when I'm I hope this is lucid.
Oh, this is
I feel like
perfect. Yeah.
I have so many tangents going on. When I'm either in defective and responsible for all of life, or I'm in shame and toxic obsession, there's a tool in recovery. It's called the 3 A's. The first A is the awareness, and you get better and better and better. It's a habit. It's a habit of awareness, of checking in with yourself. I'm there again. I'm completely obsessed with how Neil's doing. He's not in a good mood, and I can't be okay until he's okay. That's the equation from childhood. If they're okay, I'm safe. That, in a nutshell, is the equation from childhood. If they're okay, I'm safe. So if Neil's okay, if Sam's okay, if my grandchild's okay, I'm safe. And I'm in my disease. No, I need to go on a diet. It's almost summer. if I'm there, if I have the awareness of it, if I can just control what I eat and what I look like and how I present, I'm safe. Okay. So if I have the awareness of that, that's the first step. That really breaks the trance. You go, oh my God, I'm there. The second A is acceptance. Of course, I'm there. Everywhere I turn on TV and magazines, it's women in swimsuits. It's swimsuits in which I am going to magically look much more like a Kardashian than a 67-year-old grandma, who forgot to go to the gym after she had a baby 31 and a half years ago. I certainly mean to, though. Probably if we check in next week, I'll be at the gym, but so far not. The acceptance is I was trained to see myself, to have bad eyes on me, to have the bad eyes of the culture and of men and of predators on me. But I don't need to let those eyes be on me anymore. I'm completely safe right now where I am in the studio with two men I literally trust my life with, in my room with a kitty who I mostly trust my life with. But the acceptance that it's really natural. I was raised to do this. This is the owner's manual I got.
Mm.
Think that I'm defective and I can do better and look better. My stomach really could look better, and so on and so forth. And so I put down the acceptance is I accept it, and I'm putting down the owner's manual, and I'm going to, like you said, when you were talking to our listeners, I breathe again.
Mm.
And the third A is action. And the action is always loving self-care. You can ask, we have kind of a compound here with a bunch of people. I always ask people, can I get you a cup of tea?
Mm.
And so I ask myself, can I get you a cup of tea? Do you want something a little bracing, or do you want peppermint,
Mm.
chamomile? Are you warm enough? Are those pants really um, forgiving? Are those welcoming, or are the pants a little tight? We've been in quarantine for 16 months, and the pants have had shrinkage, and the world is hard enough on us without our pants having an opinion of our value. So maybe I need to put on sweatpants, right? And maybe I need a cup of tea. Maybe I'm hungry. People say, I never ever wait, I forgot. My mind just went blank. I forget what people have said before, but it's like we're never aware of how angry we are.
Oh.
We're just aware of how wrong everybody else is and how annoying everybody else is, when really our anger probably predates even knowing that person by, in my case, 50 years. And, and so the action is the radical self-care. The action is picking up the phone and saying, I'm a Sunday school teacher, right? I'm like this sweet kind of wayfish person a lot of the time, and to realize I'm in a murderous state right now. I hate everyone and all of life. And if I call Janine, if I tell Neil or Sam, they're going to go, "Oh my God, that's so funny you said that. I was there yesterday, but then you called and we went to Target, and then I got really happy again." But on the way, we talked about who we're angry at.
Mm.
We talked about the parts, ourself is usually the person we're angriest at, but we usually project it out onto somebody else because it's so miserable to be withholding from yourself and to be in really bad self-esteem. So we usually find somebody to blame for our discomfort. So, okay, anyway, I know you have a lot of questions, and I know people in the audience have a number of questions.
Mm. We do. And also, speaking to that audience, we do have a Q&A box. So please do put your questions in the Q&A box, so that we can make sure to collect them all. And then I almost said like pelt Anne with them, but I feel like that's not polite or good. Um, I, I'm, I love this. I love talking about anger and rage because it's something I feel like even more taboo than talking about things that are actually taboo.
Mm.
Um, how do we realize when we're in that place? How do we realize in our darkest and most out of control moments that we can ask for help, or that we're allowed to ask for help, or that how do we even think to search for hope? Because I know, I have depression and anxiety and a lot of things too. And when you're in that dark space, all you're thinking about is continuing on in the darkness.
Yeah. Well, because it's home,
Ugh,
right?
yeah.
And for me, home was scared. And if I'm in a certain kind of scaring myself or withholding any meager affection from myself, it means maybe mom and dad are nearby, because I keep recreating my childhood home, which was scary. And there was depression and mental illness and alcoholism. And my mother was really, really overweight, hugely. And my little brother had a really, what turned out to be bipolar, but he had just a social terror. And I was the middle child, and I was in charge. I felt I was led to believe I was in charge of trying to help everybody feel a little bit better. So if I'm feeling that, um, if I'm feeling this massive overarching anxiety disorder, for which I'm really beautifully treated and helped, then but when I'm in it, I don't want to get help
Yeah.
for it because mom and dad might be nearby.
Yeah.
And if I get help, or if I can break through it or move into a different home, I have to give up the dream that I'm ever going to have had a really healthy mother and father.
Mhm.
It means my parents are seriously dead. My dad died when I was 25. I was really young. My mom died in 2001. And if I stop trying to live for them and help them and be a certain way, it means they're really dead. And that's excruciating. And it means I never really got to have healthy parents. I didn't have parents who modeled love. I didn't have parents who modeled sharing real stuff with each other or their best friends. They did incredibly elitist, lofty conversations with their friends. It was like ping pong,
Mm.
it was like a Harold Pinter play. It was brilliant, but you didn't say what was true and real. So for me to say what's true and real is really scary. I just told my best friend, and then 3 days later, my husband, something I've never told anyone before. And I'm really old, I mean, relatively old. And I told them, and they both like heard me. And so the next time I go into this caffeinated clenched trance, a caffeinated clenched trance for me is home.
Mhm.
And mom and dad may come by, and finally it turned out that they got the therapy they needed, and they got into recovery, and they learned self-love, and they had real esteem that was not based on whether they sold, my dad was a writer, sold enough books or weighed the right amount. In my mom's case, they just had gotten the message of living from the heart, and they were able to see and delight in me now instead of expecting more of me. But if I leave that, I'm never going to have had parents who could offer me that. And that's very, very painful. So one thing is, and I know you know this firsthand, is that you find the person who can help you have those terrible, terrible feelings in a really safe place. And in my family, what we did, it was sort of the American way. It's called forward thrust. And you just keep moving. So you stay one step ahead of falling into the abyss, right? And the abyss was always there. That you might bring home a B in our case, in my case, or you might, for my dad, you might not sell sell your book very well, or whatever the abyss was. And it was forward thrust. And it turned out for me, and when I was 32 in 1986, when I fell into the abyss, usually what I do is go to IKEA and get a cute throw, trick it out nicely,
Yeah.
right? And that's still my default, except for now I go to Target because it's closer. You can trick out the abyss. And it turned out that all of the healing to my soul was going to happen in the abyss
Mhm.
when I said to somebody, you can come on down. And they came and they sat in the dirt. And it's called the abyss because it's pretty abysmal.
Yeah.
It means that who you agreed to be is no longer who you're going to be. And it's scary. It's like skin that doesn't fit quite right. And, but so with all of my disorders, and I really have every possible addiction and disorder you can have, except for gambling, which people me is a big yet for me, but I always take it really personally when I lose money, like in a slot machine. I feel like victimized. See, now victimized self-righteousness, that's a default place for me,
Yeah.
to be victimized by the world, by the people I'm closest to, and then self-righteous about it after all I've done for them, right? That's a battle cry.
Oof.
When I'm there, if I can get the awareness that I'm there and that this is a survival tool from childhood, victimized is a survival tool for me. I mean, someone may come along who can help me. If I'm there, then I do the awareness with it. I accept it. Of course, I went here right away. And relationships are hard, and people are really, really damaged. All of us, every single one of us, every single one of us is scared and angry sometimes. Every one of us is really disappointing sometimes. And anyway, if I can be real, which might mean angry and ugly and victimized and self-righteous and in shame, and I can say it out loud, just someone else. I'm halfway home. I'm more than halfway home. And so I sort of forgot the question, but I hope this was sort of an answer, is that it really begins with, it's like that great Anais Nin thing where she said that the pain of staying tightly in bud finally became too painful for her, and she decided to bloom. Right. And in 12-step recovery, people always say the willingness comes from the pain.
Mm.
You know, that if you're kind of faking it or winging it, the hangovers aren't really, really that bad and you haven't gotten a DUI yet, you're probably not willing. But if the pain, I love that Anais Nin thing. I mean, that was a book those were books that saved me as a teenager. I bet they were for you too. The pain of staying tightly in bud became more painful than the pain of beginning to bloom. And, and they weren't warning us against that as children just to keep us really scared. They
Right.
were,
Right.
it's real. It's scary to bloom. Um, it's scary to grow. I hated growing. I shot up 6 inches one summer and I hated it. And I held onto my knees for an entire summer. And if I had anything to do with growing, um, I'd be like 4'2" because I hated it. I hate being moved. I hate being challenged. I really just hate it all. I just want to stay. If it were up to me, I would say very, very small and self-contained.
Yeah, because it's safer, it's warmer. That's so oh my gosh, so much of this obviously is resonating, and I'm looking at the comments, and so many people in the comments are like, "Oh my gosh, you are speaking to my heart." This, you talk about fear and growth and change, and even in your book you talk about, you know, light, there's different kinds of light, and everything is sort of this paradox. Like, you talked about how fear kept you alive, but then later you realized that it was fear that was keeping you from living. And so everything, and then I watched your Midnight Gospel episode, which I loved. And something that stood out to me there was that you talk about that truth is a paradox.
Mhm.
How do we get comfortable, or do we ever get comfortable with paradox, and how do we allow that into our lives?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, um, a- anything that you're positive is true and verifiable scientifically is proved to also have a paradoxical element to it. Everything,
Mm.
like light is beams and its particles, and it's not one thing. Nothing is one thing. Horribly, which I
Yeah.
hate because I would really like things. I would like there to be a more organized system. I
Me
would like
too.
all of I would like all of life to be like a silverware drawer where the hard things were where the knives are, and then where the regular forks go, there would be things that pretty much worked most of the time. And then where the salad forks go, there were things that you still had to master. And then where the dessert spoons were really funny things that really good memory. And it's not like that. It's all jammed together and it's all marbled together. And it's not easy to get comfortable with it, but The willingness comes from the pain. When you keep insisting that you're right, and you know, the Buddhists say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Well, I want to be right, and being right makes me happy, right? Well, none of that sentence is true, but yet it really is true. I do want to be right. I believe I'm right. If I didn't think I was right, I would have a different thought, which would then be right. And being right. And but see, I'm not addicted to it. My husband is addicted. He's a know-it-all, which he admits. Um, what I want, my getting comfortable with paradox is, it's like a daily habit. It's practice, like learning the piano or tennis, that you practice. Is it really okay that some of the in fact, the most illuminating experiences in my life have been in the darkness,
Mm.
in what St. John the Divine called the dark night of the soul, you know, and in that darkness there was light. And in the brightest light I've ever experienced, there was just so much shadow. But then without shadow, we don't have any art at all or any music, you know, because wouldn't be capturing life. It was just all light and you know, meadows and baby rabbits. It's not life. Life is heartbreak as much as it is, you know, sweet moments of comfort and peace and even joy sometimes. It's all of it marbled together, and it just doesn't work for me at all. However, I'm going to make myself completely crazy if I stick to what I'm positive is true.
Mm.
And so, you know, I pray a lot. I am a Sunday school teacher, and I pray, like when I write, I pray, help me get out of my way so I can write what wants to be written. Because I believe that something inside of me knows what it is and where it's going. But then I want to like grip the pencil. Once when Sam was little, when he was gripping his pencil, he referred to it as grippage. And he said that he was practicing grippage. And so we always talk about grippage around here when we're in like sort of hyper OCD. Well, I'm just doing grippage right now. And when I'm in grippage at my desk with a pad of paper or a computer, I'm in my own way. Right. And I think I might know what I'm going to do today. I might write about walking out to Bass Lake last week and how slowly I had to walk because of my companion, how much it hurts my feet to have to walk so slowly. Same with at peace marches. It kills you to have to walk so slowly. I might write about that, but I kind of don't know what it is that is wanting me to, or that it is going to lead me to, or what the experience really, the nourishment of the experience or the extreme wonderful imaginative weirdness of it all is. You know, and I spend a lot of time with my writing students talking about the weird, imaginative, kind of unknowing of it all, and that is going to get them to better and better. You know, same with, you know, that you have to cultivate imagination, and that means you have to agree to not know what you're doing.
Mm.
And so
Oh.
if you can, yeah, if you can agree to not know what you're doing, then all sorts of things are going to float. When I'm writing, they float into my head like goldfish, like a memory, an image, a vision, or even a way of expressing something I didn't even know was part of the photograph, you know, the Polaroid that I took. I thought it was about the lake and the old lady and the clothes on the bank and the hummingbirds, but actually what it was about was these tracks I saw a few inches away. And so it's like, but it's hard. I'm not saying that you can just, you know, that life and God and you don't have magic wands, but you agree to not know how things are going to go, either in your writing or in your relationship or in your getting a little bit older. And it's very scary. I'm not saying it's not scary. So, but you ask for help. There's a whole chapter in my writing book, Bird by Bird, that you get to ask for help. That's not the American way. The American way is you should do it alone, master it alone, and be excellent at it, and have everybody be really, really impressed. But, you know, one of the acronyms for shame is should have already mastered everything.
Oh my God.
Right. So if I call someone, or I talk to Neil all the time, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to talk about, like with the last book or on spirit. And so I'll say, can you help me? Can we just jam? can we just talk? And I'll say, how would you even start? How would you even describe spirit? What are we even talking about? And he'll start talking. And then also in my writing about, I get it all down on paper because I was a spaced out 5-year-old. I'm a spaced out older woman. Or like this hike I took with this older woman. I said to her on Wednesday, can you help me recreate our walk? Oh, she was so excited. People love to be asked. People love to be asked for you to share their experience, strength, and hope, because it's like we were at 5 years old, finding ourselves and being lost in chapter books. People love a mirror held up to them. And in the world, in the culture, and on TV, it's like a funhouse mirror. You should look like this. You should really be able to do this already. This is a little disappointing, right? And that's a God that a lot of people grew up with. This is
Yes.
a little disappointing, to be honest. And so instead of the funhouse mirror, somebody mirroring for you a shared experience is just so life-giving. That's why in recovery, people tell the story of what it was like when they were still drinking or using or trying to, in Al-Anon, manage and manipulate everybody into doing what they thought was best. You share what it was like, and then what happened. When was the moment that the pain got your attention and that you didn't know what the future held, but you kind of believe you know who holds the future, and you were going to take a long, quavery breath and like, oh, and now what it's like now? Well, my life is a lot messier, really, in certain ways than it's ever been before. And it's a lot more free and it's a lot more expansive because I most of the time don't have a clue what is in anybody else's best interest, barely in mine, and so that's the mirror of good writing, and that's the mirror of people in recovery, and that's a mirror of people at your church or synagogue or mosque or in the Tai Chi group that has been meeting in our park, for 16 months now, 6 feet away in mask. In any beloved community or precious community, people are holding up the loving mirror that maybe you didn't experience as a child.
I'm looking away because I'm writing that down.
Oh, that's fine.
I didn't want to seem
I,
disrespectful. Oh my
uh,
gosh, that beloved community. That's one of my questions that I was going to ask you today was about salvation. And even earlier when you were talking about, wanting to run after your son with a Capri Sun and help
Sunscreen.
in
Yeah.
the sunscreen, right? Like, let me help you, let me save you.
Yeah.
There's such an interesting balance there, and I realize we've got about 5 more minutes before we're going to start our Q&A, but um there's just this interesting need in us to help other people, but like you said earlier, that's part of the disease talking, like that's,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's so complicated. That's such a hard thing for us to wrap our minds around.
Yeah. I know it is. And all of it takes time
Mm.
and all of it takes daily practice. And just like any relationship, it takes forgiving yourself 1,000 times and forgiving the other person. People are disappointing and people are doing the best they can. And people had terrible childhoods in my experience. I mean, it's funny, the people that I want to sit next to at dinner, um, had scary childhoods and had, if somebody says, my parents were just incredibly healthy. They were in love. They were married 45. They were so in love. And, each of us was different and they delighted in our differences. And if somebody had that experience, I think, why are you telling me that? Like, please don't sit down. Don't get comfortable. But if somebody says my dad was, a black belt codependent and my mother was abusive to him and she had schizoaffective disorder, and my older brother's an addict and my younger sister is whatever, and but I'm in recovery and I'm on a path, and I will say, have a seat, let me get you a cup of tea, let's get down,
Mm.
because that's a mirror for me that making a comeback, um, it's one day at a time and it's 2 steps forward and it's one back. And I retreat to those comfort zones we've been talking about at the drop of a hat. But then I've cultivated the awareness. I'm there again. I'm thinking I'm defective and responsible. I'm in toxic obsession with somebody else's behavior and how much more comfortable I would be if they changed how they are and who they are. And I go, oh, I'm there again. Well, okay, of course I'm there. I'm stressed and I'm tired. I'm not getting enough. So I'm tired. I can accept it. And then the action is, God, release them, just release them to the care of their own behavior and their own higher power and their own lives. They get to have they get one life here. And one image that really helps me a lot in recovery is the idea that we all have an emotional acre,
Mm,
and I have one, my child, all the people I love the most. Donald Trump gets an emotional acre, and you get to do with your acre what you want, as long as you don't destroy other people.
mm,
Sure about Donald Trump. I want to take that back. But most people, let's say, get an emotional. Most people don't have the power to do a devastation.
mm,
But so if I am going on to like Reese's emotional acre, and I'm thinking that he should not have those rusted car parts there because he's been saying, I've known him, for 10 years, and he's been saying for 10 years he's going to do something with them, and he hasn't. And if I go on there, I always have my carry-on luggage of good ideas and neuroses, my own mental illness and whatnot. If I go onto his acre, that's abusive, that's invasive. If he comes onto mine and says, what are all these religious gewgaws and these books? I mean, there's too many books. You are not going to read all these books. And I would say, well, you're not going to use all those rustic. You know what? It's like, get off my acre. I didn't have an acre as a child. People just routinely arrived with their carry-on luggage of projection. My mother grew up on with a dock worker for a father in Liverpool who died when she was young. Her mother was 43 when she had twins. My mother has a lot of inherited trauma, and I have a lot of inherited trauma. And if I go on, if you see me, I just want to tell you, Sarah, if you see me headed for your emotional acre with my carry-on, just run for your life. Just run for your life, because my help is not helpful. But if I see you or someone coming to me with ideas about how I should be living better, what I should be eating, and what and the exercise I should be getting, and the weight training I need to start getting involved, it's like, you can't come on. You can't come on. I like roses, and I like books, and I like pets, and I like sugar. And if you're not comfortable, please go back to your own acre and go get, some unborn kale salad or whatever makes you comfortable. I don't want it, you know. So anyway, I
thank you.
think you need to move us towards questions, right?
I do, but oh my
Okay.
gosh, this is thank you. Thank you for all of this. Yes, let's see. We have so many wonderful questions here. I'm going through them, and those of you from Strengthening the Heartland, if there's anything that you want to highlight, any of these questions that you would like specifically, just message me and let me know. Um, Here, this is a question from Annie, and this dovetails a little bit with what we were just talking about with forgiveness. So Annie says, one of the major themes in your book is forgiveness. What advice would you give to someone who is struggling to forgive?
It's hard. Forgiveness, I think, is the hardest work we do. And I've always said and written that Earth is forgiveness school.
Mhm.
And once again, it's that reality that the willingness comes from the pain, and the healing comes from the sharing of the pain. Pain shared, pain divided is pain shared,
Mm.
and so that you're not just carrying it on your back. um, I find it, I've written really whole books about it, so it's hard to answer in a nutshell. But usually, again, that awareness that you won't forgive this aunt who is always um, kind of cold and weird with you, and withholding, when you just really wanted her to kind of enjoy your company or your conversations, and she clearly didn't. And so you begrudge her, so she needs a lot of help now. It's like, well, thanks for sharing. Sorry about that. But then you realize that it only hurts you, that to have a hard heart only hurts you, and that from a spiritual point of view, my belief and what I tell my Sunday school kids is that they're forgiven before they've even done anything they have to be forgiven for. It's before giving, before
Mm.
giving, and that we're here to give. We think that we're starving for what we're not getting or achieving or amassing, but really we're just so starving for what we're not able to give and share. Generosity of heart is what literal heaven is like, when your heart is open and warm and generous and you just can't give away enough. Like little kids are that way. Little kids can be beasts, but they also give away everything. You send them to school with a peanut butter sandwich because you want them to eat the peanut butter sandwich, and they give half of it away because someone forgot their lunch. And but for a child to give away they give away everything. And to be in that place, that's really what heaven is like, to just want to give it away. And so you get to not forgive, that's your choice. And it hurts not to. A hard heart, a cold heart hurts. And so, God, there's so many books I could all of Jack Kornfield's book, or this podcast he did at How to Human, is his whole work is opening the heart,
Mm.
healing the heart, healing the unforgiving heart. There's just so many books that I would recommend. There's another interview at How to Human called by Byron Katie. I don't know what some of the younger people can find How to Human and then find Byron Katie. Can they, Sam? Is it there? Yeah, it's still there. And what she does is that work that I think is very profound. It's four or five things. The first thing is it true? What you're thinking true? I.e., that this person is just beyond the realm of forgiveness. Is it true? The second thing is, are you positive it's true? All of my problems and neuroses and coldness are mental because I've decided something is true. So the second thing is, you ask yourself, people can go to the Byron Katie too, and not just here, but just Google her. Okay, the third thing is, when you think this or feel this way, how do you act?
Mm.
Uptight, rigid, clenched, self-righteous. And the fourth thing is, who would you be if you didn't have this thing going on? God, I'd be so grateful today. Grateful is what heaven is.
Mm.
Grateful in service and generosity are what heaven is like. If I wasn't having this obsession with how cold my aunt was to me, and I have to go see her, but then I don't want to, and I actually would rather go shopping at Target, but I should. Who would I be if I didn't have this? I'd be in gratitude. I can go visit for half an hour and I'll feel great afterwards. I can be this person who is slowly evolving.
Mm.
We all are. I mean, that's what Neil's book, Shapes of Truth, is, that life errs on the side of goodness and evolution. And it doesn't always feel that. Sometimes it's too long. But some of those things help me with the forgiveness. Like, is what I think about this person even true? Yeah. Well, are you positive? Well, kind of, pretty positive, sort of positive, right? Who would you be if you didn't have this? I'd have a really happy day.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Um, our next question here is from Blake, who says, as a mental health counselor, I work with people who are emotionally hurt and emotionally hide as not to be seen by others. What are ways you think we can best help people to feel safe, to be open and heal?
Well, it's back to the precious community, to a safe, trusted community, where people have similar problems, whether it's a group for bulimics. I mean, I had bulimia. I had really literally every disorder you can have. But if I'm with somebody who's bulimic, when I was in a group, we would share these terrible, kind of shameful, humiliating stories, and it was all we could hold up the mirror.
Mm.
I didn't do it yesterday. I didn't binge yesterday and binge and purge yesterday, and I haven't today. And people are like, wow, that's incredible. Well, I did this morning, but I kind of along the way, I think I won't again today. And tomorrow, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to check in with someone here when I wake up. That's my, and little by little, people are saying, this works. Shame never works. Don't bother with that. Call me at 7:30 tomorrow morning, and we'll just sort of make a menu for the day of the things that will help us not need to mood alter. Because all of these disorders are mood altering in some way or
Mm.
another. For mental health communities, um, there's a 12-step program for everyone. And I know one of my best friends is much younger than I am, and she's probably going to die at some point. Maybe she'll last this year, maybe not. And so she's in a group of the sickest possible people, and they live for their meetings because
Mm.
they don't have to pretend and be cheerful or say that they're any different than they really are. And they go to dog parks and they sit on the benches because they mostly can't watch, and they watch these idiot dogs and puppies and cranky old men dogs with long beards, and they get to say whatever is true. I know a lot of people with extreme mental illnesses in my family, and they at their like Kaiser's, something a lot of people in my family are in. There's groups for people that have had suicidal ideation. There are groups for people that are bipolar who have severe clinical depression. And you go there and people aren't going to say, oh, buck up, look at the silver lining. People are going to say, boy, I know what that's like. I'm just going to tell you I'm there too. But and then you say, well, okay, thank you for saying that, because I don't feel like a freak anymore. I'm not in that kind of sheet metal isolation that I'm so singularly damaged. It's like something I personally have a biochemical imbalance. There's something very different about me, and without help, I I have to work very hard to get where most people just start the day, right? And so I have a great psychiatrist. I take the kind of medicine that over 20 years in the lowest possible amount that makes it me not have to start way below where people that don't have my biochemical disorder start. And so, and if I tell people who understand that, then they go, "Oh, me too. Oh, me too." And then if I tell people who don't have it, who are anti-medication or anti-psychiatrists or whatever, who think you can do it spiritually, I was in church for a year before I got sober. Church didn't get me sober. Precious Community did.
Mm.
Whatever. And so if I'm with people who are opposed to my path of healing, first of all, I have to ask myself why I would set myself up like that, to be shamed and talked down to. And but if I'm with people then we start jamming and we compare notes and we riff, and it's like music, making music together, and we laugh. And laughter is carbonated holiness.
Mm.
Say again and again and again. If I'm laughing, like we had 12 people here at a kind of impromptu 12-step meeting at our carport with mostly family. People were telling stories that would cause regular people to draw back and go, why would you tell that at a group level? Or or oh my God, you didn't really do that. We were all going, oh yeah, yeah, right on, me too. My biography is different than most of theirs, but my heart and my soul, my damaged, my battered spirit as a child is really familiar to them. And they were, and we were practicing that fear expressed allows relief. And we were sharing fear, and we were sharing rage,
Mm.
and we were laughing. But mostly what we were doing is listening. And we were in a small circle, and we were looking into each other's eyes and listening and going, uh-huh, wow. And then at the end of every show, we said, hey, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Steve. So it's blessed instead of more trauma. It's blessed.
I love that so much. And
And we are
yeah.
molecularly changed by being looked at like that. We are molecularly changed by eyes of love on us.
Mm. And being seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that we're molecularly changed by that. Ugh. I have, in our last 3 minutes, can I ask one final question
Of
here?
course.
It's a tie between these two, but I've been prodded to ask this one. So, Doll asks, how do you parent well when your experience of parent has not been super healthy?
Well, my son glaring at me. You do the best you can, and it's and every parent fails miserably some of the time. And what helped me was talking to other single parents and other parents who didn't have the money to provide what most of their schoolmates were getting. And I talked to other mothers who were just so stressed and crazy. And all of us were. My son is a father of an almost 12-year-old now. And he's, you make horrible mistakes, you kick yourself. You could only give what you had.
Mm.
You sort of dance as fast as you can to try to make up for it all, but you really can't. Keep starting over. Here is what, and you start to be able, as you see and begin to love yourself more, you begin to see your children with clearer glasses. You see what they need. You see what didn't help. You see that there's sentences you swore you would never say to your child, and you just said them. But you start to notice how you start to notice that they keep forgiving you
Mm.
for everything you couldn't provide, everything you did wrong, every mistake you made, and that they start to realize how hard it was. And I learned to parent because of the books and the shares of other parents who did not have ideal marriages with plenty of money in which to raise ideal children. I talked to parents like me, and I talked to spiritual mentors, and I talked to a therapist. And, I'll just close. I think we have one more minute. There was this guy that helped AA get off the ground, a priest who was not actually himself an alcoholic. But he said to Bill Wilson, the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, he said, sometimes I think that heaven is just a new pair of glasses.
Mm.
And I think about that almost every day. And I think with my regular the bad glasses on, I just see how disappointing everybody is. I see how much better we could all be doing. I see what we still need to do around here on the compound. I see what I really should have done when I blah, blah, blah. And if I put on the good pair of glasses, I notice that Neil's roses are blooming.
Mm.
I notice how much love we are sharing just unconditionally with each other. I mean, in spite of it all, I'm seeing how far we have come. My son got sober 10 years, coming up on 10 years ago, and the miracle that he and I are, and it's not perfect, and we can just drive each other crazy. But if I have the good pair of glasses on, I'm just so, so, so grateful for the people who helped us every step of the way.
I love it. And you've helped so many people here today. This has been beautiful and astounding and eye-opening. It reminds me to remind everybody, pick up Dusk, Night, Dawn by Anne Lamott, and pay special attention to the quote on the back where it says the center will hold. And thank you so much for holding space with us today. Thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you listening and watching, for your questions, your participation, your engagement, your love for each other. Thank you for doing this. This has just been an incredible, incredible event, and we are so grateful to have spent time with you today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. You did an amazing job
Well, thank you.
holding space for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Strengthening the Heartland, for sponsoring this event today. And please make sure to practice radical self-care today. Drink that water, go for a walk, spend some time in nature. And yes, remind someone that they are loved and that they are seen. So
Yeah.
thank you.